I was sitting in for somebody for a whole week, and I took a break, and there was a news guy in a little cubicle right next to me with a beautiful voice, kind of like James Earl Jones. And I said, "Oh my God, your voice is so beautiful." He said, "You think so?" And I said, "You don't think so?" He goes, "No, I don't really care for it." And I said, "If this guy doesn't like his voice, nobody likes his voice, so I don't complain about my own voice anymore. Maybe you guys do, but I don't." In the second hour, we're going to talk to Pastor Corey Brooks. He is a pastor in Chicago, and he's been talking about the root causes of crime. And believe it or not, it ain't the guns, which is what CNN consistently says. It's not the guns. The New York Supreme Court judge struck down the Democrat governor's mask mandate. I still can't hear. And Jen Psaki says public health officials, not parents, make the best decisions for their kids. CNN has determined the real problem with the surge in homicides is not bad guys killing people. It's not people coming from rootless homes. It's because of the surge of coverage by Fox. You see, if it weren't for the dastardly people over at Fox talking about crime, 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 we wouldn't have a problem with crime, crime, crime. So all we have to do is shut down Fox, and we're good to go. You can now walk around the city. You can eat outdoors. You can go to high-end stores without anybody threatening you, without smash and grab stores. It's all about Fox News. So all we have to do is shut down Sean Hannity, shut down Laura Ingraham, shut down Mark Levin, shut down Jesse Waters, and we are good to go. So good to know. Now, crime is up in 10 major cities. It's worse now. It's been in decades, but that's because these cities probably have a lot of Fox News watchers. Get rid of the Fox News watchers. We are so good to go. So all of that and more, 888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. If I play a clip, any chance it's going to work? Okay. Couple things. The president teed off on Fox's Peter Doocy. He called him an expression I can't use on our radio show, but I guess if you're the president, you have that kind of latitude. He referred to him as a son of a bee, except he didn't say bee. Now, let me tell you why they're so unhappy with Peter Doocy. And by the way, I don't find Peter Doocy nearly as obnoxious as I found Jim Acosta for CNN, who was a thorn in the you-know-what for President Trump. I don't find him nearly as obnoxious as I found the woman that was a thorn for George W. Bush. What was her name, Mr. McConnell? I forget her name. She was always called on, always said something obnoxious. We did a montage of her one time. I can't think of her name right now. Anyway, she couldn't stand George W. Bush, hated the Iraq War, thought of him as a warmonger. I think she even used that word, warmonger. In any case, I think Doocy is a very polite guy, polite young man. He doesn't have an obnoxious voice. He asked commonsensical kinds of questions, and he got hammered. And the other day, he asked Jen Psaki about, crime. Here's what happened.
On crime, to follow up on what Ed was asking about, would you agree that the most important job for any president is to keep Americans safe?
I would agree.
So you said that the president's never satisfied if people don't feel safe. Does he know that after a year in office, people do not feel safe in this country?
Well, Peter, I think if we look at the facts here, we've seen a surge of crime over the last 2 years. Would you agree with that?
So what are you attributing the rise in crime to then?
Well, I think we should be responsible in how we're reporting to the public what the roles are, what the reasons for the surge in crime. Gun violence is a huge reason for the surge in crime. Underfunding of some police departments and their need for additional resources, something the president has advocated for consistently through the course of his career.
Okay, guns, underfunding of police department. Let me just break this down. There is a firearm probably for every man, woman, and child in this country. We're not even sure how many there are. And the reason that people are buying guns is because of the, quote, underfunding of the police department you just now talked about. The police are demoralized. they are not engaging in proactive policing. And as a result, people are saying to themselves, if you guys are not going to defend me, if you guys are not going to do the number one responsibility of government, which is to protect people and property, we're going to do it. And the implication is that because people are buying guns, as a result, there's more gun violence. No, it's the other way around. There's more gun violence. That's why people are buying guns. As for Jen Psaki's assertion that the underfunding of the police department, you mean the defund the police movement? You mean people like Kamala Harris, who says we need to, quote, rethink policing? You mean the campaign promises that people like Joe Biden were making to reform the police? Is that what you're saying? Yeah, Helen Thomas, that's her. It was Helen Thomas. That was the pain in the you-know-what for George W. Bush. Peter Doocy is not obnoxious like that. Peter Doocy is not obnoxious the way Jim Acosta is. Peter Doocy is a calm, polite guy. In fact, I wondered whether or not he's going to be tough enough to be a White House correspondent. He is. He just has a very understated way. But let's get back to what Jen Psaki is saying. So Peter Doocy was simply asking her about crime and making the argument that, people feel unsafe.
That's something we know we need to take action on, and it is absolutely true that he will not be satisfied or complacent when officers are being gunned down or when Americans have to worry about whether they can safely ride the subway or bus. That should not be a political issue. He's somebody who has had a long career of many decades of fighting for funding for police departments, for local communities in order to reduce crime.
But he's been here in office for more than a year, and the murder rate is nearing a 25-year high. So why don't we see and hear more from the president about this? We hear all the time about things that you guys are doing to fight the pandemic because that is a risk to American people.
Jen Psaki, is there a connection between the rise in crime and Joe Biden becoming the president of the United States? Is there a connection between the rise in crime and the way you guys justified 4 months of violence in our streets after the death of George Floyd? Is there any connection between that and the defund the police movement?
A rising murder rate is a risk to American people too, right?
And he has spoken to crime, but I think what people are most
And he has spoken to crime, and he's spoken to it. So, problem solved.
focused on, as they should be, are what actions he has taken. He has unveiled a strategy to focus
Unveiled a strategy.
law enforcement resources on combating violent crime.
Unveiled a strategy for law enforcement resources. What the hell is this? Bad guys? No. We got soft on crime DAs. We have a soft on crime administration that believes that bad guys are bad guys because, well, their father didn't take them to lion jungle safari when they were 5 years old.
Offered unprecedented levels of funding through the rescue plan for cities and states to put more cops on the beat and invest in proven community anti-violence programs, something every Republican voted against.
And of course, the 800-pound elephant in the room that even Peter Doocy has not addressed, the rise in the number of kids who are raised without fathers. Maybe at some point we can have a discussion about that. I very likely will with my guest next hour, Pastor Corey Brooks from Chicago. All of that and more, 888-971-SAGE. Go out and get me a gun. I'm Larry Elder. Another gun. when I do return, it makes it kind of make it less loud in my ear. What do I do? This one? Okay. What does vocal do?
Hi, Larry. My name is Tom. I'm from Philadelphia. I just was wondering, there was a comment made that black police officers are more reluctant to shoot unarmed black people. I was just wondering why that is. Could you answer that for me, please? Thank you.
888-971 SAGE 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We are ReliefFactor.com studio. It's real simple. Cops are afraid of being accused of engaging in racism. Cops are afraid of being the next most hated white man in America. Cops are afraid that somebody with a cell phone is going to accuse them of targeting, profiling black people. I have lots of friends who are police officers, and I will tell you, when a suspect is shot, particularly if a suspect is shot and killed, the first thing that people say at the department is, what race was he? And if the suspect is white, there is a sigh of relief because they know that Van Jones won't give a rip, Don Lemon won't give a rip, MSNBC won't give a rip, the various local activists won't give a rip. My mother used to say, when a white guy gets killed by a cop, he's just one dead fly. When a black guy gets killed by a cop, it's a civil rights matter. That's why. And this has been going on for decades. And when you look at the amount of crime committed in the black community versus the amount of crime committed by whites in the white community, if anything, cops are more likely to shoot a white suspect than a black suspect for committing the very same crime. And this is what we call the Minneapolis effect or the George Floyd effect or the Ferguson effect. Cops are pulling back for fear that they're going to be accused of engaging in systemic racism. That's what's going on here. And when Jen Psaki talked about all the things that the Biden administration has been doing, she didn't mention two things. One, of course, is the proliferation of fatherlessness, nor did she say one word about the left-wing rhetoric that has caused the cops to change their behavior. And again, forget about Elder. What about people like Rahm Emanuel, the former mayor of Chicago? When he was mayor of Chicago, he said the Chicago PD had, quote, gone fetal. His expression, not mine. So this is what's going on here. Now, the officer who was in critical condition, one of two officers shot recently on a domestic violence call, has now died. His name is Wilbert Mora, 27 years old. He was shot in the head on Friday as he was dealing with a domestic dispute in Harlem. And the man who is the suspect is named LaShawn McNeil. He was also shot, and last I heard he was in critical condition. I don't know what his condition is right now. But these are two NYPD officers who have now been killed. And that brings the number of officers killed this year at this point to higher than last year at this point. And last year in 2021, there were over 70 police officers murdered or killed in what they call felonious killings versus 39 in 2020 and about that same number in 2019. That's almost a 100% increase year to year. Now, who's killing them? Between 1980 and 2013, there were roughly 2,269 officers killed in what are described as felonious incidents. We don't take into consideration, for example, officers who died on 9/11, officers who died while chasing a bad guy and then end up running into something and dying. We're talking about felonious assaults. Of the people who killed the police, 52% were white, as against roughly 60% of the population, 62% of the population. 41% of the people who killed the police were black, as against a 13% population. So the police are far more likely to be killed by a black person than killed by a white person. And when you're talking about unarmed blacks, and that's the category that people are most concerned about, according to Heather McDonald, a police officer is 18 and a half times more likely to be killed by an unarmed black than the other way around. Now, instead of being angry at Larry Elder, instead of that gentleman who's one of the 15 angry black people who calls and leave a message. By the way, notice that the guy never calls during the show. The show is on from 3 to 6 p.m. Pacific time. The number is 888-971-7243. You can talk to me in real time. I'm not hard to find. Why don't you tell me what your beef is? Tell me what your grievance is. Tell me what I've said that's wrong. Please do that. He calls and leaves a message, but he won't call and talk to me mano a mano. The question you ought to be asking yourself is, what the hell's going on? And remember, generally speaking, the victim is not a cop, not a white person. The victim is another black person or brown person living in the inner city. I saw a stat about New York City. When you add up the percentage of blacks and Hispanics in New York City, you're talking about roughly 50% of the population. 96% homicide victims, black or brown. Now, you ought to be asking yourself, what's going on, instead of attacking the great Eldersky as the black face of white supremacy, instead of attacking people who are bringing you the news. And frankly, you ought to be saying to yourself, you know what? This is good news. It's good news to know that the disproportionate number of blacks who are being killed has nothing to do with racism, systemic racism. Has everything to do with the disproportionate amount of crime committed in the black community. And most of the victims of said crime are black people. But you got people like Eric Holder, the former AG under Barack Obama, talking about pernicious racism. And he gave 3 examples. One was voter ID. Never mind that the majority of blacks support voter ID. The other one he gave was the disproportionate number of blacks who are kicked out of school for misbehaving. Never mind that the same number prevails whether the principal is black or white, whether the teacher is black or white, whether the school board is people of color or all white people. The same phenomenon prevails. And he also said, as another example of pernicious racism, is that a white criminal who commits the same crime as a black criminal, the black criminal gets a longer sentence. And that is true. What he didn't tell you was that the U.S. Sentencing Commission says the reason for that is legitimate factors. Most notably, the average black criminal has a longer conviction record than the average white criminal, and that is taken into consideration when the judge gives the criminal defendants the sentence. And by the way, black judge, same as a white judge. If anything, maybe a black judge might sentence a black criminal a little bit longer because he knows who the criminals are and who the criminal victims are. This thing on? I don't think this thing is on. We come back, I want to talk a little bit more about President Biden referring to Peter Doocy of Fox News as a son of a bee. You know who had a pretty salty tongue? Former President Barack Obama. Sure did, but they covered up. They concealed, they protected him. I'm Larry Elder.
This President Biden, he says he's not racist, yet he puts the people who side against his voting bills on the side of Bull Connor and George Wallace. That sounds racist to me. And then he says that the whole supply chain problem and the high food prices is because of COVID-19. Well, I saw a whole year go by with Donald Trump in office. The food prices were low, the gas prices were low, the energy prices were low, the job market was good, inflation was low. I mean, will the real liar please stand up?
The Russians weren't threatening Ukraine. The Chinese weren't nearly as aggressive as they are right now. Iran is this close to getting a nuclear bomb. Things were a lot better. A lot better. The borders were secured. There have been 2 million people attempting to illegally cross our border last year. In fact, last month, the authorities aren't even putting out the numbers on people that tried to cross the borders illegally because they know they're so bad. Where is the mainstream media yelling and screaming about why you aren't giving us the monthly border numbers? Is this thing on? 888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. Jen Psaki says public health officials, not parents, make the best decision for kids. And there is a proposed law in California that would allow kids to be vaccinated as young as 12 years old without parental approval. All of that and more. Now, towels just don't seem to dry anymore. Oh, they feel all soft and lotiony in the stores. But you get them home and they don't work. And Mike Lindell scoured the company, found the best towel, scoured the country rather, found the best towel company right here in America. And they've got proprietary technology to create towels that not only feel soft, but actually do the job. They actually work. We're talking about a 6-piece set, 2 bath, 2 hand towels, and 2 washcloths made with USA cotton. Regularly $109.99, now just $39.99. Makes you want to take a shower and use the towels, doesn't it? Go to MyPillow.com, click on the new radio listener specials, and you're going to get deep discounts on all MyPillow products, including the towels. Enter promo code Larry or call 800-890-1843 for these great radio specials. That's MyPillow.com, promo code Larry, or 100-890-1843. We're talking about crime. We're also talking about the way Donald Trump, on a hot mic, referred to Peter Doocy, who asked a question about whether or not inflation is going to hurt you, as a stupid SOB. But first, let's get back to crime. As I mentioned, the second NYPD officer who was shot on that domestic violence call in Harlem has now died. A councilwoman in New York named Kristen Richardson Jordan, after the shooting, she tweeted 2 hours later about her concerns over a neighborhood community garden being shut down. Didn't tweet one word about the officers being shot. After she was hammered on social media for her tweet, she then said this, and I'm quoting, "I have been asked not to tweet about it," referring to the shooting at this time, "but I will definitely address it," close quote. Who asked you not to tweet about it? Who told you not to say anything about it? Now, this is the same woman who, as I said yesterday, had absolutely no problem tweeting about how ornery the police are. Here's what she said back in June of last year, and I'm quoting. She tweeted, "Always remember that the police and prison systems were created to preserve slavery." I kid you not. "To break the chains, we must fight for total abolition." Here's what she said 4 days later. "We cannot reform a system of policing that is so firmly rooted in racism. Defund and abolish NYPD. The police have never served our communities. They don't prevent crime. They are an occupying force created to terrorize poor people and enforce racial hierarchies and class divides." She also said this, "In August of last year, we demand an immediate end to the racist and classist," spelled CASSIT, thus proving the need for vouchers, "classist cash bail system, and the immediate release of all New Yorkers incarcerated at Rikers Island and in all New York City jails." She is an elected city council member, New York City. Who would vote for somebody like that? When the polls show that blacks want the police manpower to remain the same or to be increased, who votes for somebody like that? Meanwhile, on the other coast, San Francisco is advising residents not to call 911 unless it is a life-threatening emergency. Again, I kid you not. Don't call 911 unless your life is at risk. We're going to get back to all of that and how Peter Doocy was referred to as a stupid SOB by President Biden. Can you imagine what would happen if Donald Trump? Never mind. Now, if you're struggling with back, neck, hip, shoulder, knee pain, whether from working out or just general muscle aches and pains, I suggest you consider ordering the 3-week Relief Factor Quick Start. It is still, by the way, discounted to only $19.95. What? That is less than $1 a day to see if we can get you out of pain. After that, what? Less than the cost of a cup of coffee a day to stay out of pain? And over 70% of those who order the 3-week Quick Start go on to order more. Give your body what it needs to heal itself. ReliefFactor.com, 800-500-8384.
Hey there, buddy. You're a good man. I've loved you ever since I heard you talk. Live close to Chattanooga. I know Chattanooga fits into your explanation of who you are from your dad when he was over here, but it ain't the same Chattanooga now. Keep up the good work. I sent you some of my Tennessee money to try to get you elected governor of California, and appreciate what you do, and we'll keep on supporting you any way I can.
Well, I really appreciate that. 888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We are ReliefFactor.com studio. As you know, my mom, my dad met and got married in Chattanooga, so I appreciate that. Regarding helping to support me any way you can, to that end, I've set up a political action committee called ElderForAmerica.com, and as I mentioned before, the idea is to campaign in favor of school choice. There are a bunch of school choice initiatives all over the country. We're going to get behind them. Get rid of things like critical race theory. Get rid of these soft-on-crime DAs. There's about 12 of them with George Soros' fingerprints all over them. They're the ones that believe in cashless bail. They're the ones that believe in criminal justice reform, which means defunding the police, which means attacking the police as an occupying force, which is causing crime to go up. And that there are races, very important races, targeted races, where the Republican candidate is in a swing area or a swing district or a swing state. And we're going to get behind those candidates to make sure that we take back the House and take back the Senate. And believe me, not a dime is going to go towards people like Mitt Romney. I was talking to one donor who was concerned that my political action committee would put money in the hands of people like that. I said, believe me, we're going to be very, very surgical about the candidates we back up. And I'm going to be flying on behalf of those candidates, using my newfound clout and celebrity to help these candidates take back the House and take back the Senate. And as I said before, at the grassroots level, these school board elections, and getting rid of these courses like critical race theory, and making sure that people have school choice, something that Barack Obama benefited from when it came to his wife, Michelle. I mentioned that yesterday. She went to a public high school, but it wasn't the nearby public high school because she felt it was inferior. She got on a bus and went to one way outside her area. We now call that, wait for it, school choice. And I mentioned that the girls, Sasha and Malia, they never set foot in a public school K through 12 for themselves, nor did Obama K through 12 for himself. He was educated at a school for oil company executives when he lived in Indonesia. His mother felt that that school was inferior, sent him to Hawaii to live with her parents, his maternal grandparents. He ended up going to the finest prep school in the state of Hawaii, came to L.A., where he went for 2 years to a private school called Occidental, finished up at an Ivy League school, Columbia, and then, of course, got his law degree at Harvard. His entire education private, yet when he went to Washington, D.C., one of the first things he tried to do as president, and did do, was to try and shut down the D.C. Opportunity Scholarship Program. They gave roughly $7,500 to families that were lucky enough to get into the program. I say lucky enough because there were far fewer seats for those who wanted to get into it. So, okay for school choice for me, okay for private education for me, but not for thee. It is outrageous, and that's one of the things we're going to do with ElderForAmerica.com. So throw a little something in the tip jar, help me out. Now, Joe Biden yesterday on a hot mic, after Peter Doocy asked him a question about whether or not inflation was going to hurt him, said this.
Do you think inflation is a political liability?
That's a great asset. More inflation. What a stupid son of a...
What Doocy said was, do you think inflation is going to hurt your prospects for the future? And he goes, yeah, what a great asset, inflation. What a stupid son of a bee. And it was hot mic. Now, of course, they always do clean up for him. And meanwhile, over on CNN, they're saying, well, you know, they knew that the mic was on. They didn't think that the mic was. They didn't think that the mic was hot. It was clear that Biden knew that the mic was hot.
And we should note he was speaking on a microphone. He had just made remarks to the room for about 10 or so minutes on this competitive council that they have formed here at the White House, and it seemed pretty clear he knew he was on a mic, Jake.
Yeah, and the microphone is literally right in front of him. It's not as though he was walking in a back room and he forgot that he had one clipped on his lapel.
So you see that? What they're saying is he did it on purpose. Now, let's assume he did it on purpose. Why aren't you guys outraged by this? Why aren't you outraged that one of your fellow reporters, a White House correspondent, was called intentionally a son of a bee. Why aren't you bothered by that? They're not. Couldn't care less. They don't like Ducey either.
Was right in front of him. This is, of course, the president who, when he was vice president in front of the world, went into President Obama and told him that Obamacare passing was a big effing deal. Again, a hot mic moment, but this one seemed a little bit more blatant even.
Well, and Jake, I think the irony also is that the president was saying he wanted questions on the topic at hand. Inflation is related to this council because, of course, that is something that they are trying to solve, something they are trying to talk about. It plays into the larger conversation about it. And then when he got that question, that was how he responded, Jake.
Yeah, he's having a rough time of it.
Yep, having a rough time of it. Do you remember when Donald Trump would go after Jim Acosta? They were outraged.
You are a rude, terrible person. You shouldn't be working for CNN. Honestly, I think you should let me run the country. You run CNN.
All right.
And if you did it well, your ratings would be much better.
If I may ask one other question, Mr. President, if I may ask
Peter,
one
go
other
ahead.
question, are you worried?
That's enough. That's enough.
Mr. President, I
That's
was going
enough.
to ask one of the other folks.
That's enough.
Pardon me, ma'am. Mr.
Excuse
President.
me. That's enough.
Meanwhile, over on CNN that I watched that you don't have to, Jim Acosta, the gentleman you just now heard, tangling with Donald Trump, and Don Lemon said, well, we never got an apology from Donald Trump the way he treated us and the things he said about us, so why should Peter Ducey get an apology from Joe Biden?
You know, to some extent, things are better. I mean, today we had the President of the United States refer to a reporter as an SOB. You know, Don, you and I got called a lot worse back in the day. We never got an apology. I don't remember that from the commander-in-chief.
No.
So maybe things are a little bit better to some extent.
Not at all. If you don't believe it, just check social media. You can go back and just look at things worse. But listen, I mean, it was unfortunate. The president shouldn't have said it.
It was unfortunate the president shouldn't have said it. Meanwhile, you got people on your network saying that he knew that Mike was on. Did it on purpose. Unfortunate? He shouldn't have said it? Now, which is it? He was caught inadvertently, or he did it on purpose. And by the way, we never got an apology for the way we were treated back in the day. By the way, I never got an apology from Don Lemon either. Remember this?
Larry Elder, a colleague of mine who happens to be black, I think it's only relevant because we're talking about racism here, and doesn't think Trump has unleashed racism, did a CNN analysis. And it
Just
seems
because
that
he's black, it doesn't mean that he is aware, and it doesn't mean that he is smart.
I never got an apology.
Just because he's black, it doesn't mean that he is aware, and it doesn't mean that he is smart.
Now, 3-week quick start, $19.95. Still discounted to $19.95. Less than $1 a day to see if we can get you out of pain. After that, we're talking about less than a cup of coffee a day to stay out of pain. Over 70% of those who order the 3-week quick start go on to order more, you know. Give your body what it needs to heal itself. Are you suffering from back, shoulder, neck, hip, foot, knee pain from exercise, or just listening to CNN? Consider ordering the 3-week quick start. ReliefFactor.com, ReliefFactor.com, 800-500-8384, 800-500-8384.
Larry Scott in Ohio. Doesn't threatening to impose economic sanctions on Russia for invading the Ukraine amount to a quid pro quo? Pourquoi? See, it's done all the time. What say you, Sage? Love you, Larry.
888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We are ReliefFactor.com studio. Next hour, we're going to be speaking with Pastor Corey Brooks of Chicago, who has been dealing with crime there. We're going to talk about what the root causes are. Stick around for that. Also want to talk to you about the pass that Barack Obama got when, off the record, he went into a, quote, profanity-laced tirade, close quote, against the media. We did not find out about it until one member of the media, her name is Ann Compton, retired. And then she went public and talked about it. Talk about circling the wagons around Barack Obama. Chris is in Graham, North Carolina. Chris, you're on the Larry Elder Show. Thank you so much for calling. I appreciate it.
Hey, no problem. Thank you, Larry. Thanks for taking my call. How you doing today?
I'm doing well.
Excellent. I'm actually from Canada originally, and then I lived in California for about 10 years, and now I finally escaped socialism far enough to get all the way to North Carolina. So, so thanks for sticking back in California and fighting the good fight. So, if you won governor, I might actually consider moving back there.
I appreciate that.
Well, a quick question for you. Something I noticed was during the good years with Trump there, even though we had the Moab of Kellyanne McEnany as press secretary, we never saw kind of some softball questions from Fox like Gary Busey. Instead, we were made to suffer through Jim Acosta constantly doing what he does. Mm-hmm. And now that we have Psaki doing the job, it seems that we never see any softballs from CNN either. Not that there would be any softballs for his administration. Right. But why is it that it always seems that they only call on the opposition to make it more combative? Like, why don't they ever call on their own side just to get some softballs during those press briefings?
Well, they call on Peter Doocy because they can't avoid him. I mean, Fox has more viewers than MSNBC and CNN combined. So you can't avoid Peter Doocy, so they've got to call him. The real question is, why is it the other media outlets give such softball questions? That's what we got to be talking about. That 2-hour press conference, not one question at all about the borders. Are you kidding me? And there was a question asked about Hunter Biden, and Joe Biden completely ignored it. Why no follow-up question? You don't care at all about what's going on the borders? Are you kidding me? Over 2 million people trying to cross the border illegally, and in the 2-hour press conference, not one question about that? And what about Biden's assertion that Build Back Better won't cost a dime, and it won't add to the debt, won't add to the deficit, won't cause inflation? Where are the tough questions on any of that stuff? Come on. I'm Larry Elder.